Good morning. So if we agree not to tell the fire marshal, I'll leave the door open. It's a little stuffy in here. But if anybody comes by with the uniform and the hat, we'll say, oh, we didn't mean to do that. We'll shut the door. Sound good? My name is Leo Lachut from the University of Connecticut. I'm the Director of Academic Support. I'm pinch hitting today for the Assistant Vice Provost, so she apologized. She's at a different conference. Good morning and thank you for joining me. I'm from the Institute of Student Success. I've been at the University of Connecticut, come on in, a while. I'm coming into my 20th year. I've worked at Manchester. Any Manchester folks in here? Early on in my career, so the community college population is near and dear to my heart. I was a trio counselor at University of Connecticut in the SSS program for a little while. Directed an advising center at the School of Business, and now I'm with the Institute of Student Success as the Director of Academic Support, which is a long title for I help students do better. Right? And, and I'm sure many of you do the same. Just to let you know, today is being recorded, so we have to watch our language and what we say. But the plan for today is I'm going to plow through a little bit information about the Institute, what we do, some of the high-impact initiatives that we do. Plenty of time to ask a lot of questions and share a little bit. I know we have a lot of experts in the room as well. So if you want to jump in, I'm very casual with those kind of things. And then can we just real quick kind of go around what institution, who you are and what institution you're at? Thanks.
Norwalk Community College, Director of Development for the Foundation.
Thanks. And you are?
Sue.
Sue.
Yeah.
Denise Ross Smith, Norwalk Community College. I manage the College Access and Success Program.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly K. Hope. I'm the Director of Student Activities here at Housatonic Community College.
And I'm Elise Mulvihill, and I'm the Project Director for the TAC Round 3 Consortium Grant, also known as the Forward Program here at Housatonic Community College.
Ellen Weir, Counselor, Housatonic Community College.
Alana Weems, Director of the Family Economic Security Program here at the college.
Anisha Thomas, Peer Services Coordinator here at Housatonic College.
I'm Ed Becker, I'm Chair of the Business Department here at Housatonic.
Tanya Romano, Psychology here at Housatonic.
Wilson Moon, being a student at Gateway.
Mirna Garcia Bowen, Central Connecticut State University, Office of Transfer and Academic Articulations.
Yogi Tully, Math Instructional Support Specialist at Housatonic Community College.
Andrew Peltier, Coordinator of the Center for Academic Progress here at Housatonic.
Kofi Armando-Easy, Instructional Support Specialist here at Housatonic Community College.
Terry Walden, Coordinator of High School Outreach Coordination.
It's our student volunteer in the back.
I'm Mike Ducilli, I'm the Director of Counseling and Student Success at Gateway Community College.
Hi, I'm Tracy Tyree, the Vice President for Student Affairs at Connecticut State University.
Hello, I'm Priscilla Titus. I'm a Student Success Coach at Norwalk Community College.
Stacey Reed, I'm the Career and Technical Education Counselor at Norwalk Community College.
Laura McCarthy, Director of the Academic Success Center at Northwestern Connecticut.
Rosemary Rodriguez, I'm the PH-140 Coordinator at Mount Valley Community College.
And Jean Robinson, and I teach finance at Westcott.
Cheryl Putnam, currently an adjunct of biology at Middlesex Community College.
Joe Rail, Dean of Academic Affairs, Texas.
Paul Carmichael, Middlesex Community College, Office of Institutional Research.
Vincent Hall, Director of Institutional Research, Gateway Community College.
Great. Thank you and welcome. Sounds like a lot of us speak the same language in what we do across our institutions. I forgot my clicker, so I have to click myself. First world problems, right?
I have one.
You have one? Maybe it'll... See if it jams. I know, I usually carry one in my bag too, and I cracked it. There you go, thanks. Make sure I get it back. So our institute is primarily made up of three units, or three separate units. See if it grabs it. Is there an on button?
There's no on button. It should like ding when the driver loads.
When it grabs it? Okay, we'll see. We'll give it a minute.
Try getting the USB port sometime.
There it goes. So our 3 units that fall within the Institute for Student Success is one is our ACES, Academic Center for Exploratory Students, and our BGS program. First year programs and learning communities. We love our acronyms, FYPLC, and the Center for Academic Programs, or CAP. So our institute provides personal and holistic support. Obviously, that's where we're about. There's great articles out there about college ready and college eligible, right? And a lot of our students are college eligible, but they need to be more college ready, and that's the holistic support. Academically, they bring a lot to the table, but we want to work with them on a more robust experience at UConn. And again, we matched our high impact practices with the goals of the university's academic plan to ensure that we're in line with the university. So ACES is our first stop. ACES, or the Academic Center for Exploratory Students, is our population who are planning on entering our professional schools. So our School of Business, School of Nursing, Pharmacy, it's a holding place pretty much for most of that population, where they can complete their general education requirements, line themselves up GPA-wise to enter the schools that have, professional schools that have later acceptance rates. So that's, our School of Education falls in that as well. So a lot of academic advising, career development, all in one shop. Excuse me. They also help with orientation and a referral across campus. And they also serve as a leader on campus when it comes to advising, because they're generalists but specialists at the same time. So that means they need to know all the different majors at UConn at the same time. Come on in. And be able to help guide that student. We do have a population of undecided students that enter UConn. They know it's UConn, but not really sure, and this is a good place for them. I'll have a slide later. That population is tending to shrink a little bit due to parents who don't want their son or daughter to start the University of Connecticut without some direction. But then we love this new term called pivot. Students don't change their major anymore, they pivot. Right? I like that term a lot. We work with students, or the other term is wrongly majored. Right? Everyone's coming to UConn to be a doctor. They do a couple of semesters of bio-cal-chem, and then they pivot. Right? But it's a very positive term. It's very intentional. I'm not leaving something. I'm going towards something. Right? That's why I like that term. They pivot. Obviously, we have over 100 majors at UConn, plus a individualized. At 18, do you know what you want to do the rest of your life and how much money you want to make? When a couple months earlier you had to ask to go to the bathroom, right? And get permission. Come on in. You bet. So our ACES is a spot where those students can land. Another resource from ACES, and it's not on the slide, but I want to tell you about it. It's called TME, the Major Experience. TME.uconn.edu. One of the counselors, advisors there developed it on his own. It's a great resource for students. All he did was bring together all the resources in one portal. It's a great TME, the Major Experience, .uconn.edu, and it's a free resource. He just launched it this semester, and he's still beta testing it, but anyone can use it. It's wide open. When I talked about the advising leadership, the ACES also serves a place across campus at other advising centers. We have professional advisors and faculty advisors, that wonderful mix. I know many of your institutions have that as well. But the professional advising staff can serve as leaders across campus to help the faculty in things like even the communication, the data gathering, and take leadership roles in that. All of our advisors also serve as FYE instructors. We do a lot of teaching and mentoring. Peer education is a huge component of everything we do. Obviously, the numbers of the students we can't support, so we use peer education in a lot of different places, including our higher education student affairs graduate students. A lot of them do their practicum placements within our office. It's a nice match for that. And obviously, they all sit on committees across the campus when it comes to advising. I mentioned earlier that this traffic is going down a little bit intentionally because we're bringing UConn students into the institution because parents keep talking about marketability upon graduation, right? That's changed a little bit since my undergrad days. You know, you had to go to college to be educated, but the marketability piece is shrinking that population just a little bit. Retention. Our retention numbers are pretty good. We're about, and within ACEs as well, in the first year, we're about 91% to the second year. Our institution, we're about 94% to the second year. And we talk about the first year programs, and I have some slides later to have an impact on that. The vice provost often talks about our retention is pretty good. Students stay at UConn, but our goal is really to have them thrive at UConn, right? Any counselors in the room? Yeah. So we have a lot of students that do very, very well, but they're struggling, loneliness and all those other pieces on a massive campus that has that experience. So our retention numbers are pretty good. Obviously, the vice provost wants us to move those a little bit, and we're at, our 6-year graduation rate is in the low 80s at the moment. We also inherited the Bachelor of General Studies. This population, we're trying to complete those folks. They go out and they try to find the folks with 100 credits, 110 credits that are still missing 10 or 12, and can we get them through the system? So the ACES Center also reaches out to that population, and they're working with those groups. I found out my roommate has 117 credits from college, from the 80s. And just because he called me, he goes, remember 20 years ago when we lived together? Yeah. I need 3 credits. How do I do that? And I said, you take a class. Because yes.
Do you have credit restrictions in terms of time?
So the 8-year rule, but our center can work with those folks and get waivers and those kind of things and really do a degree completion service for our students that are in that population. First year programs and learning communities is where I'm currently assigned directly. That's the traditional first year experience class, the 1 credit graded, how to be successful here at the University of Connecticut. Our learning communities, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but we have, we're up to 30 learning communities, living and non-residential. And then the academic support piece, what I directly oversee is a center, a coaching center that many of you talked about earlier. A program called UConn Connects, which is our academic recovery program, which is a nice way of putting it. We're helping students off probation. We do early warning interventions, and then supplemental instruction is also out of our office as well. The other piece that I talked about, peer education, out of first year programs is our Alpha Lambda Delta Honor Society for students in their first semester who's achieved 3.5 or higher in their very first semester. Last fall, we inducted about 1,500 into that honor society. Of a freshman class, about 3,800. So, a couple of numbers. About 160 faculty and staff from across campus teach the FYE class. We offer a suite of classes. One is the traditional 1 credit, we call it UNIV 1800. One is tied to our learning community. And then we have content-based 1 credit, kind of a freshman seminar. I'm sure you have a similar sections of that kind of thing. There are 3 components of our FYE that all our FYE students take part in. One is they all work 100% with our Center for Career Development. So by Thanksgiving of their first semester, they all have a critiqued resume ready to go. It's a massive undertaking, but they all do it. We intentionally have them work on that so that their first internship, opportunities on campus, like a first year student can already say, I have my college ready resume started or ready to go. We also collaborate with the Writing Center on campus, and one of the assignments is they attend our cultural events across campus, create a critical reflection, have it critiqued at the Writing Center, and so they've not only we've supported the cultural events across campus, the attendance there, But students know where the Writing Center is, and they've worked on a critical reflection and understand how the Writing Center works at the University of Connecticut. And then we also applied strengths quests to about half so far. Yes?
Does the credit count towards graduation?
Yes, it's part of the 120. They fight us all the time on that. They don't want it to be graded, they don't want it to be credited, and we kind of go back, and as I'm speaking to the choir, that if you don't have credit or grade, you have attendance issues. Wilson?
Is it required role of your freshmen?
We do not require it, but we do get about 80% of our first year students enrolled in it. I do a lot of selling. I get to talk at the student orientation to the parent population, so I'm there. So I tell mom and dad that it's probably a good idea that your son takes this class, and your daughters, but the daughters are great. They just do. Mom, what am I supposed to do? All the sons. Anybody? Where's our counselors? You have males? Yeah. Our males are struggling. They are, right? The women come to my office and they have their schedule and it's color coded and they know exactly where they're going. And the men show up with a pen and a notebook. Maybe, right? But we also work very closely with the advising centers. So it's become part of that first year that here's your prescriptive list of classes, but it's also important that you take this one credit class. The academic support, my center, the UConn Connects program for the folks who are under a 2.0. I get about 50% participant rate each semester. It's oddly the same numbers. We have about 550 to 600 students, first and second year, under a 2, every semester. Very odd that it's always the same number. I have 105 faculty and staff facilitators. They're amazing, and I'm very thankful for them and their supervisors to allow them to work with us. And it's just a volunteer person that we do a little training, and we say meet with that student over the course of the semester. And it's very relational. It's someone at UConn cares about me while I'm struggling. And we have an 80% success rate. That's it. It's a weekly meeting, over it's out of your office if you want it to be. It feels different, looks different. If you're an advisor and you do it, we tell them it's not an advising appointment. Get out of your office, go somewhere else. And I've gotten some graduate students to kind of get into this as well. And of course, our human development and family relations students can do a 3-credit internship with us in that office doing the same thing. They take on about 5 students. They do a class with me, student development, counseling theory, that kind of thing. But it's a pretty big program, and it just runs every semester with 500 to 600 students. The probation letter goes out, and we time it so that my letter, Dirty Pool, goes home, old school paper letter, goes to the house, addressed to the student, but it says UConn all over it. So you know what happens. Mom and dad open it and find out that you're on probation and say, you're going to enroll in this program. So that letter shows up the next day after they get the probation letter. Then we hear you're on probation, but wait, we have a program for you. And it's incredibly important on the timing piece of all that. Start of the semester, we have a big kickoff, and we bring all the students that signed up for the program together with all the facilitators. It's a very awkward night, but it's kind of interesting to see a couple hundred students in a room realize there's a couple hundred students in the room the same as me. Which is an important piece, a mental health piece. Because no one posts on their Facebook, I'm struggling at UConn, or tweets out. Everything's amazing. And I'm the only student who's struggling at UConn, right? So it creates that, I'm less than, I'm lonely, that kind of thing. Our SI sections I inherited a couple years ago. Supplemental instruction, most folks have it. Yes? No? Should I go through it? No? Folks know what it is? Oh, I got some notes, okay. So supplemental instruction is we hire a student who's already taken a class with a certain faculty member for some of our significant gateway courses, bio, calc, chem, large lecture, foundation-based courses. I find a student who did very well in the class to sit through it again. They go to class, And then 2 nights a week, they review the content and study skills that match with that faculty member in that class. So it's content and coaching in the same night, and it's peer-to-peer student. It's incredibly effective, started in the 70s. I can't remember the school. Thank you. Kansas. The important piece with supplemental instruction is the faculty buy-in. Right? A lot of times they don't want someone else teaching their material, but then they realize having an SI section lowers my traffic and my office hours, and I lower my DFW rate. So after they get initiated that SI works for their class, I get a phone call every semester. Leo, you going to get me an SI? All that kind of stuff. So we do the standards, this is our intro to chem. Psych bought on early, and they're great supporters, so I use Psych as well. But at the moment, I only have 10 sections. Obviously, it's tough financial times for everybody. University of South Carolina has like 80 sections. If you want to look at their website, it's all listed there. It's really interesting. It must be about $500,000 just on SI. But they've created it. I went down there to visit. It's part of the culture. So if you're in a class, you know you have an SI section for it. And it's facilitated group study at the lowest level. And go from there. My chem guy's graduating. I'm so mad, but he's going to dental school. But he's one of these students who said, I say, what'd you do over break? He goes, oh, I made new chem study guides while I was, I'm like, you didn't go to Bahamas? You didn't go? He goes, no, I made these study guides. It's going to be great. And I'm like, okay. Whatever. He's great. I love him. He's going to dental school, so he'll be good. Our coaching center, how many folks have, I heard success centers and coaching centers. We're looking for a good name if you got it. We struggle.
Academic coach.
Yeah.
English academic coach, math academic coach.
Yeah, but the center,
Academic Center for
success, that's what, all these, it's kind of the same, unless I can get a big donor. Anybody interested? There's naming opportunities, right? Bob's Furniture, the Ray Allen Center. I heard Ray's looking to give money. Yeah, right? There's all those people. But it's interesting that, here, I'll pull the group real quick. My provost wants me to change my name to the Academic Counseling and Support. And everybody gets nervous about the word counseling, right? And what does that mean and all that kind of stuff. It's not good, right?
No, because the support means that they're not there. So it's saying you're inadequate.
Right. So can you come to a meeting with me? I like Academic Achievement Center. It's very positive. Our learning communities, this has blossomed amazing across campus. We have 30 learning communities, and we're going to be at 19 live-learn learning communities. The important piece for learning communities is it's not themed housing. And there's a difference because our learning communities are tied to a faculty member. In the first semester, these students are engaged with resources and a faculty member in the very first semester of their college career. It's challenging and a little bit sad when we talk to first-year students and we say, you need a professor to write a recommendation, and they say, I don't know any. And then they get to their sophomore, I still don't know any. And the junior, I still don't know any. And they're looking for grad school, and I'm like, who's going to write your recommendations? And they're like, can you? And I'm like, I'm not faculty. Do you know any faculty? So we got to engage them with faculty. So learning communities do that. Obviously, helps with the transition. It makes a 3,800 freshman class much smaller. Some of our smaller learning communities are 20-ish, and some of our larger about 120, 140. It makes a small feel. They provide resources, and as you know, it's all about the T-shirts. You have to have a T-shirt of your learning community across different parts of campus. Some are interdisciplinary, community service, innovation house, very cool. Humanities, public health house, leadership. Some are major-based, obviously business, engineering, nursing, those kind of things. Our Women in Math, Science, and Engineering, WIMSE, is very popular, and and I have the data, I'll show you. It's having a positive impact on our successful women in the STEM, they were leaving, so now we're going to keep them. Yes?
How have you academically connected your transfer house?
So we're launching Transfer House this fall. One of our new ones, Transfer and Scholars House. Transfer House, we have a faculty director who's going to be embedded with that group as well. Obviously, our transfer students are struggling. We know that. Everyone knows that. For years, when I first got to UConn in 1997, they said, how are we going to help our transfer students? Last fall, how are we going to help our transfer students? There's some politics in there as well. But we will have a faculty director tied to them. And as you all know, transfer is like being a freshman again.
Will they be taking a course together?
So they'll have that one credit class that's all tied. It'll be a 3,000 level for them because they're too old for a 1,000 level class. But it'll be a 3,000 level class that we've got approved. Yeah, it's a transition class. And so living together, the class will be in their resident hall, down in their community room, that kind of thing. So I'm really excited about it. I've worked with a lot of transfer students who they end up in our office their second semester at UConn because they just get run over.
And we have a transfer, but ours is more like a baby community. We struggle, we don't have this in residential law transfer students that we do, but we struggle to make that successful. So it'll be interesting to follow UConn.
We'll see what. Originally, it was going to be in my shop, and I said I'd love to have it. It's a good connection, and I said I just need a person because of the time investment in a learning community to make it run well. You need a person, and the faculty time is key.
Is it mandatory?
Nope.
And is it offered on all your campuses?
Well, we only have housing at stores, so
This is just for the...
this is the live-in version of it.
Sorry.
And we're only going to be able to launch about 60 beds in our first semester. Scholars House, if you're following us, we're in international news. We had some misinformation get out in the media that challenged us as an institution, and I think we're out in front of it finally, and they understand the role of Scholar House and the holistic wraparound support to support our men who identify as Black or African American, and we're going to increase our retention and graduation rate. Our population at UConn, 1 out of 2 Black males graduate. So we need to push the needle on that. That'll be about 40 men living in that learning community. And then our non-learning, non-living learning communities are mostly major-based. Any question about learning? Yes.
I guess just to follow up on the question a few minutes ago, at your non-residential campuses, your satellite campuses, do these programs exist? I get that the learning communities don't, but your other support services?
There's talk. We're one UConn. And I'll draw the line at it. Obviously, actually I'm going to stop in Stanford while I'm down here, talk to the Director of Student Services. They're interested in doing that. They're relaunching their FYE program, so there's a re-interest in these programs, and it, as you know, it depends on the leadership on the campuses, those kind of things. Some of our regional campuses are just very thin with staff.
Do those numbers get counted into UConn's main campus?
They do not.
They do not. There you go.
Yep. Right? If it did, maybe we would change our initiatives a little bit, but right. So our graduation rates is, I don't know, many of you know, our graduation rates are our first semester store students. That's how they look at numbers. 40% of our incoming class are in learning communities. I think that's a good number. They want to move it a little bit more to help us with our learning communities. Is some of the different. This is our kickoff prior to the semester. We bring them all into Gamble, and it's high energy, that kind of thing. Very identity-based, affinity-based groups around their learning communities. Yes.
Maybe more student-led, like the learning communities, like the students come together and say we would like to form a learning community, or is it more the administration says we have this learning community, do you want to join it?
It's driven by departments oftentimes. They want to increase their numbers of majors in their areas. Some affinity groups on campus. Obviously, there's a great need for certain affinity groups to live together or want to live together and have that experience. So it's a little bit of both. It's not. Some students come forward and say, I did have a student say, I'd love a transfer house last year. So they've talked about it. So a strong student may push for it. The other piece is resources to launch a learning community. It's a director, a faculty member director. We do learning community ambassadors, and there's students that live on the floor as mentors, and the RA is specifically chosen for that learning community. So it does take some resources to launch a learning community.
Is that 40% of the incoming class, is that participate pending on their admissions to the institution, or is it strictly volunteer?
Strictly volunteer.
Okay.
So when the student is accepted to UConn,
Right.
they will select or apply to one of the learning communities of their choice,
Okay.
and there's a process for them to do that. Is that kind of your question?
Are you referencing the summer program?
Yes,
Are they required, the summer programs require the transitional summer program?
The SSS program is a little different. That's not a learning community. The TRIO program. They are pseudo learning community, but that's a completely separate program.
And is your Comcast program tied to that program?
Comcast is separate. It's underneath ISS. It's underneath our world, but it's not part of learning communities.
Oh.
I am from the department, but I do know the value of a fine arts kid living with a business kid living with a... But the neat thing about that is they can go into like Innovation House, where and I'll talk about that in a minute, where you bring those folks together and they make incredible businesses and they make $1 million. And, they launch from their basement. So 200 faculty, staff, and student leaders, RAs, mentors participate in learning communities. For example, we have a animal science learning community. Obviously, we've increased the graduation rate of animal science students. We've increased the number of animal science students. And the persistence rates have gone up for that population as well. The Center for Academic Programs oversees our TRIO programs and the CONCAS and CONCAPS and those kind of thing. I spent a lot of time over in Student Support Services, which is our summer bridge and pre-collegiate program. The McNair Scholars now have fallen under. Do folks have McNair Scholars programs? The graduate STEM program. And then our talent search program, our middle school, high school program. Actually, we did not write, so that will be phased out this August. Yeah, we didn't renew the grant on that one. Salaries. We were just funded, it's completely soft money, and folks who work in our grant have to follow UConn salary, and the salaries are greater than the grant. And so, sad, but. So there are other things in the pipeline that we're talking about. We're rewriting our upward bound grant. We've lost that in the last round, so we're going to rewrite again for this round, try to get into that one. We also just inherited the LSAMP program as well. Lewis Stokes Minority Research Program. So that moved over into our shop. So we're writing this summer. I think they're due this summer. And that's a pretty cool program as well. In the SSS program, about 1,300. That's our first-gen low-income group. CONCAP, about 75. First Star Academy, really neat program, working with the kids who are in the foster system here in Connecticut. And they do Saturday academies on campus, and then they do a summer component where they earn credit, college credit. Really neat program. A lot of wraparound services for this population, very complex, high need. Anytime they ask me to come do something, I'm like, yes, I'll be there with free T-shirts or whatever you guys need and give out stuff. Yes, question?
Yes, for your students that are enrolled in the First Star Academy, do they self-identify? How are they chosen?
They work closely with DCF.
Right, but do the students have to self-identify to the program, or are there social workers reaching out to
Yes.
you all to say enroll them in?
This would be a good person. It's more driven by the coordinators.
UConn students or high school?
No, these are high school population. Yeah, high school population.
It's just that UConn provides this.
Correct.
Okay.
And then our McNair Scholars driving folks into the STEM PhD programs. There's some data. Sorry, let's jump to data. Lots of data. Our high school program, 91% of the seniors enroll in a post-secondary. Graduation rate of 94.5. And then, yeah, our First Star Academy. we bring about 20 a year into the cohorts. The SSS program at stores. We also have SSS programs at our regional campuses. Same thing, just non-residential, smaller. One of our favorite data points is if you study abroad as an SSS student, your graduation goes up to 88%, which is a really cool number. About 12 to 15 years ago, we started a study abroad program with the SSS population. Amazing. We partnered with the University of Liverpool, and we would go to their university as our host institution, and then the weekend would be, the off-campus stuff, and take the class Monday through Friday, and then Friday jump on a plane or a train and hit another country or city. That ran at about 10 years, and then we finally got a little smarter, and we have a UConn in London office. So we have people on the ground who, wear the UConn button. So we partnered with them. So our SSS population now do a 3-week May term in London.
If a student who's transferring from a community college is in an SSS program, would you know that when they transfer?
No. They would have to self-identify, number one. Folks who are familiar with TRIO and SSS, you do identify in your freshman year. That's how we bring you in as your cohort. So from a different institution, it gets a little muddy and gray from your funding folks.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a shame.
Right. I never turned anyone away, but I can't fund their study abroad experience with our Fed money. Many of you are familiar with the Bridge program on our campus, 6 weeks, 6 credits. They each are assigned an SSS counselor, very small caseloads, complete wraparound, workshops, seminars, financial literacy. We introduced study abroad in that moment. As you know, first-gen low-income folks don't study abroad. But we introduced that in the summer Bridge. And we bring back folks who just got back from their study abroad experience. When you have that, I've just been abroad for the first time, and you're so excited, everything's better in the UK. And they're amazing marketers for that population. During the academic year, all those services, and I'm sure you're very familiar with all that, they do writing sections of our English freshman comp that are just set aside for the SSS population, and they have an additional graduate student who's a writing fellow where they meet in a group of 6. That's great to bring them right down to that level, where they do some real work with their English comp. Lots of services. I can watch the time. I want to make time.
How many students are in there?
They bring in a cohort about 150 a year, so about 800 total on campus. McNair Scholars, they do a summer research with a faculty member, primarily STEM, and we obviously pushing them off into a graduate PhD program. And they also have a 1-credit STEM research class to learn about research early on. New developments. As you all, I'm sure, are tasked with, assessment, numbers. We do a lot of that. Our new residence hall is coming online this fall. It's really exciting. It will be all learning communities. And in the first floor, we're developing a maker space. Folks familiar with maker spaces? It's a large room, 2 stories high, has every tool in it that you could possibly think of. Laser cutters, 3D printers. So students can go downstairs in their residence hall at 3 o'clock in the morning. They have an idea. They can make their prototype. It's really interesting. It's the thing to have, I guess, on institutions. We went down to Yale, looked at theirs. Over the top. They have $8 million worth of resources. Yes?
It's a question on the assessment. Have you developed student learning outcomes for, like, a coaching program, for example? And would you share those?
So I'm 2 years into this role, and that's one of my tasks. I'm trying to tweak. Counselor, help me out. I'm sorry. There's a counseling assessment when you leave your session. What's it called? Can't think of it. SIS or SOS? Student Outcome Services.
Yeah.
It's a national program you can buy. So I'm trying to tweak that the coaches can get an email upon leaving, because we want a little bit more than customer service. All our advising centers have customer service, bounce backs, yeah, that kind of thing, but I'm trying to develop one to go a little deeper, and I think I want to partner with that population, because our mental health uses it, because it's also along the way. So it's, mid-semester, end of semester stuff. We do basic, how was your facilitator, would you come back, those kind of things. But I haven't found much out there that I like yet. If you have ideas, please help me.
We're thinking about that.
Yeah.
Starting to work on that again, so.
That, and then also, I've been tasked with looking at their SI. Is it actually lowering our DFW rate? Who's attending SI? It's a lot of variables. Is it your students who are doing well to continue to do well, or is it your struggling students who are in SI and they might get a C or C plus when they would have done worse, so they scraped along? Is that the population? So there's a lot of variables, but yeah.
What about academic advising? Have you
It's
worked-
customer service based.
That's it?
Yeah. Do you go to Nakata? Sometimes. They talk a little bit about that. So this new residence hall will have a makerspace in it on the first floor, available to everyone in the learning communities in that building for now. And then our intent is to open it up to other places. If you're an engineering student, usually you don't get into the really cool tools until your senior design class, but this is engagement in the first year in a makerspace. They were at MIT 2 weeks ago. They have about 40 makerspaces across campus. It's MIT, right? But it's also empowering the students to do this in that very first semester. When I was talking about Innovation House, when we were down at Yale, we met some guys who were working in the makerspace, and it was an MBA student, an engineering student, and a liberal arts student, and they all had this prototype, and they said we can't talk about it. But they were all graduating, and that was going to be their business, and they were going to launch it. And they were working on their prototype in the makerspace when we were there. It was really, really neat stuff. We do things, I don't know, we call it innovation creativity. You watch Shark Tank. So students will do pitches and those kind of things. We did one last year for our first year students. We got a little bit of money from the provost, and we actually ended up launching 3 ideas for students. It was a semester-long project. They set up their own teams. We started with a large lecture hall and started to break down each week with different challenges, and people naturally, organically dropped off. So at the end, we ended up with about 6 or 7 teams of about 10 students, and then they pitched at the end, and we launched 3. I need to increase supplemental instruction, and then we collaborate with ECE. That's our high school program where students take the class in the high school. Obviously putting them ahead a little bit, so we work very closely with them. Okay, so we've had some questions along the way. What other kind of ideas or questions, kind of some of the things I've talked about? Yes?
What kind of software programs?
So, it's a great question, and there was a piece of the slide I jumped over. I don't know about you, but I get vendors constantly calling me, looking at me, Starfish and Hobson's, and I don't know who else is out there, right? They all want to do it. So in our ACES department, we have an advisor who says, I can build that. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, I can build that. So he built a student arrival notification database.
Can we have his number?
Yes. No. So he built a system that students have a net ID, 3 letters, an initial, and he loads it, and when the students sign, all they'd have to do is put that into an iPad when any of our centers across campus, and it tracks so much information. So he built it for free, including a note system to match it. So currently, we're in those kind of software systems. Hobson's, my wife is a Hobson's administrator, actually. The folks at Hobson's is a national name for that kind of stuff. I think they pay, I think she said something like $500,000 for it, and our advisor made it for free. So we're pretty good at the moment. So we've built that, and it, charts and graphs and that kind of stuff. All I do is hit report, and I get a little pie chart and people, and I go, ooh, shiny. But it helps with reporting and financial support.
Is it connected to SAS?
It does not, no. That's one of the downsides. We're on a PeopleSoft system at UConn. So we run a CSV file and then this massive thing and upload it. There were some other questions. Yes.
Interested, because this obviously reports in academic affairs, what your, besides residence life, what your intersections or how you integrate your work with student affairs?
Yes. We had a professional development last summer. We said, let's just talk about who we partner with across campus. And it was everybody.
Is it informal? Are there formal structures that support that?
Yep. So for example, SAP, satisfactory academic progress, sits in financial aid. But,
You do the intervention?
yeah. So I'm like, why? So I went over to financial aid one day and I said, why aren't I in your letter that says that you sent to students about satisfactory academic progress? The Academic Achievement Center should be at the top of your list.
That's interesting because SAP is a big question for us right now because it rests in financial aid, but the support is not, the accountability is not supposed to be for the student in financial aid, but you don't have a formal program in your department that does academic plans for those students that are on SAP or just someone else.
In theory, yes.
We're looking at whether we could provide that, but we don't really have the resources, so we're struggling with that.
So that's why I went informally with that, because it doesn't exist, that they have to kind of go through and lay it out. Who else is doing SAP support? Some of the advising centers do SAP support. But I'm always out looking for pockets of places where I can just interject. That's how I ended up with transfers. Even and our regional campus folks are very similar to transfer students, so I target them. Demographic populations, those kind of thing, I kind of informally partner. As we know, informal partnerships sometimes work better for a while. Yeah.
Didn't you say, though, you send a letter out timed right after to get this UNSAP letter?
So the SAP letter is separate from the probation letter. Probation letter comes from academic affairs. Then the SAP letter comes from financial aid.
You guys simplify that.
Yeah.
I feel like
Not all those on academic probation are SAP.
Right.
Right, we gotta line them up.
Yes.
So most of what your success programs, I mean, obviously it costs a lot of money to do what you're doing.
Some days.
How much of that is state funded, how much of it is grant funded?
So only our TRIO programs are grant funded. So the McNair, SSS, some of the high school initiatives, those kind of things. We've partnered with the foundation because we just need to in today's climate.
Because what you're doing, I believe most people, most colleges cannot do because we don't have funding.
Right. So, and I agree.
All right, let's not go see
So-
CSU against UConn.
Right.
No, I'm not saying that. My point is, that's why we look at the grant funded.
Right.
State funded.
My alarm's going on.
Yeah, I don't need to attack them. I'm saying
No,
what
I hear
you're
you.
doing
Yeah.
is great, but it requires a lot of resources.
Right, but 105 faculty and staff volunteer to be mentors in my academic probation program. Volunteer.
That's amazing.
All of our FYE instructors are volunteer. So 150
When you say volunteer, that's part of the workload.
for some people are told by their supervisor, you do this on your lunch if you want to do it. So they still do it. Most people, in my experience, most people went into higher education because they want to make a difference in students' lives. Whether you're working in financial aid in a cube or whether you're out in front one-on-one providing service. And it's an easy sell to people to say, hey, you want to work with a student one-on-one for a semester and help them get off probation? And if you want, I'll talk to your supervisor. And I'll go around, and it's very relational to get folks in the program. So that helps. Student peer education, free. My staff in my coaching center, 2.5. Right? And I'm not saying that to be, I need people. Every meeting I go to, I say, can I have a person? I need at least 1 or 2 more. My assistant director came back and said, I went to comparable schools and they have 6 to 8 people, professionals doing what we do here. and we're just kind of limping along with people, with what we have. But we would love to offer the FY instructors something, you know, because they're really doing it on their own time. You know, you're grading papers at night, you're putting together your first year on your own. So yeah, so there are resources, yes, but we do, you know, did a lot of church work when I was growing up, so I do things on the cheap, or try to. So
And I,
Oh, you're unionized, right?
yes, we are a union
Your
shop.
staff are unionized.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Professional Employees Association, for now, till the governor has his way, right?
I was just going to say that I concur with you because we just started a formal mentoring program at North Community College for the Comcast program, and 90% of our mentors are staff, faculty, and we even have one of the deans. And it's just ask.
It is. And I think it's important, as many of you know, the further you go up the chain, the more removed from students you are. So a lot of times people say, oh, I just missed meeting with one student once in a while, you know. And obviously I sell, right? Everybody says, are you a used car salesman? I said, no, I'm just out to help students. You know, I'm trying to get people to volunteer, but it's relational. Yes? Training? Lots of training, lots of training. For all the mentors, yes. Faculty and staff, we do at the start of the semester. I do ongoing throughout the semester, and then obviously support them digitally with all sorts of updates and social media and that kind of thing. For the students, we do a couple-day training prior to the start of the semester in August and in January. So there's a lot of training because FERPA, all the other things that are potentially, but I've partnered very closely, just so you know, we've changed my center, and I'll end with this. I inherited the center, the Academic Success Center, and they said, oh, you teach note-taking. And that's where they kind of left it. And our counseling and mental health center cannot hire enough therapists. They hire more, it gets filled up. They hire more, it gets filled up, right? Because when someone cries in your office, the first response is, you need counseling and mental health. When in reality, they need an adult to talk to and kind of work it out, and grit and resilience and all those hot button terms, right? So our center has become a lot more holistic, and I've partnered with the director of mental health to make sure she knows I'm not trying to do therapy with students, but we all have counseling backgrounds in our center. So we can move the needle a little bit if you're having a bad day, if you've had your heart broken, if you failed your first exam. You can still come to our center because it's, again, talking about college eligible and college ready. Our first year students in October, I call it the October Revolution, right? Because the first 4 or 5 weeks, everything's great. Everyone's got a 4.0, life is good, my roommate's nice to me. And then October hits, and they try to, they say, I don't know about UConn, I should go home. And if I'm first gen, I'm definitely going home. I'm living out in the cows. I don't know what this is like. So the Success Center has become a lot more holistic in their response. And we've seen a little nudge over at mental health. So I walk folks over who need to be over there. And then they refer back to me into our center as well. No. Love to build one. What do you want to do this summer? So my contact information, everyone's first name, last name at UConn. I'd be happy to answer more questions or collaborate. I'm all about collaboration or ideas. If you have technology ideas you want to share, I definitely am interested in assessment and those kind of things. Have a great conference. Thank you.
And Norwalk Community College has a mentoring manual that we would be more than glad to share.
Love it.
If anyone would.
NCC has a mentored manual. Great. Sure.
You talk about, you actually have experience working in 2-year and 4-year institutions. These are two different populations.
Yep.
And particularly, even you talk about UConn, which is really different from, let's say, 4-year state
Yep.
and 2-year. So what Can you tell me what are the strategies that are really aligned with student success in 2 years? And it might be working in 4-year institutions, but not working in 2-year institutions. I mean, do you have any comments on that?
So